Welcome back, friends. This is Solomon Jagwe. I'm back with another quick insight. So today we're going to be sculpting in ZBrush using the ZBrush for iPad uh, app. It's an iOS app. They don't have an Android version just yet. And today I'm going to be taking this character right here in from an organic looking shape into like a robotic looking head inspired by Megatron. So yesterday, man, I did a stream and I streamed for over 30 minutes and only to realize that there was no audio, right? I was like heartbroken because I put so much time into it. So I'm hoping that there's audio right now. Please, if you can't hear me, let me know because I really want to make sure that this one goes really well. And feel free to ask questions. Okay, I've just did a quick test. It looks like there's audio. Okay. So anyway, I'm using the iPad Pro, the 13-inch model. And so this, what you see right here on the screen, started off as a ZeeZoo character. And I started off, this was when I was using ZBrush on the computer. And I wanted to create some kind of creature that started off as a ZeeZoo sphere and into this ant that you see right here. It has very, very good details. And I love sculpting. I come from the traditional sculpting route. So when I was growing up in Uganda, I used to sculpt using clay and wood and stone. So this for me is like almost full circle, but almost like having unlimited sources of clay, right? So I tend to like robotics and science fiction, as most of you have noticed on my channel. So today I'm gonna be trying to convert what you see here, an organic shape of this, into like paneling, using ZBrush or taking advantage of the new features in the ZBrush for iPad app. And so please feel free to ask questions as I'm sculpting. If you have any questions regarding the app itself or my workflow, I've created a number of videos that shows you how to sculpt in ZBrush on the iPad, but that was using the PC version. This is a new version of iPad that is native to the iPad. So it's not connected to a PC at all. What we see now is like actual sculpting in ZBrush on the iPad, right? So anyway, let me show you the progress that I'd made yesterday, right? And let me go ahead, go to the home over here. I'm not gonna save this, and let's load this one right here. So I'm gonna pick up from where I left off yesterday, but the same things that I'm gonna show today are gonna apply to what I did yesterday. And unfortunately, the session just didn't go well because there was no audio. Anyway, so as you can see, I've created some paneling on this insect. And again, I'm inspired by Megatron from the Transformers movie. My son absolutely loves Transformers. So I wanted to create something that looked like Megatron, like that kind of feeling to it. And so I'm using the Apple Pencil Pro, right? And some of you have asked me, why do you wear this, right? These gloves. And that's only to prevent myself from creating smudges, especially if you're like right now, I'm going to be streaming for a little bit, a while. So you tend to sweat when your hand is on the screen. So that's why you see me wearing this one. This is to free up my fingers to be able to sculpt, right? To draw. And then this one prevents the smudging on the monitor and on the surface of the tablet. Okay, so first things first, navigation wise is again just pinch and zoom like you would on a normal iPad, right? And then if you want to rotate it on a particular point, just release one finger and then be able to rotate around that. This is so convenient because it makes it easier for you to focus in on a point and then just continue sculpting, and you can zoom in as much as you want, right? And then continue adding detail. So let me start adding some detailing. So yesterday, by the time I got to this point, I'd explained a lot of things that were happening inside of ZBrush. But let me show you some of the things that I was able to do and the kind of brushes that I was able to use. So this one, this particular uh, shader is mainly for previewing to see how the different parts of the the creature or the robot look. But when I'm ready to sculpt, I switched over to the green, this one. And this is the one that I use for mainly sculpting and adding detail because it gives me like that feeling of clay. Okay, so let's start sculpting. Again, I'm gonna use build clay build, or rather, I'm gonna use clay build up and dump standard and the flatten brush. Those are the three main uh, brushes that I use when I'm creating like or mechanical looking creatures. And I set off as an organic one, so I was using just simple clay like build up. But when I'm ready, then I start building. So let's first do a little bit of clay build up over here. And I'm going to find an area that is still looking organic. For example, this panel right here. And I'm going to add some indents. And right now I have symmetry turned on right here. And so I'll just continue adding some detail. This is so much fun. All right. And again, I'm always thinking of sci-fi looking robots. That's why it helps to either have like a concept art that you've drawn, or if you're being inspired by somebody else, then you can use that as a reference. But in my mind, I'm thinking of Megatron or the Decepticon robots and the Transformers. So I already, because I've watched those movies many times over, it's mainly because of my son, I just continue just paneling out, just essentially sculpting from memory, but also letting my mind and my imagination flow like that. All right. So like right now I have this kind of panel. Right now it's not the final shape. I just wanted to add some like kind of definition so that then I can add some paneling to it. You see for in a second. All right. Now, when I'm happy with that, I just transition back. And the good thing about ZBrush for the iPad is as you're using your brushes, the most recent ones are going to be added to the most recent tab over here. So I'm going to go to the flatten brush over here, and I'm going to increase the brush size over here. And you can actually also use the 3 fingers to pinch. And let me do like maybe a size like that. Now I'm flattening this to be like a panel like that, and then go over to the side, add a panel like that as well, zoom in. And this is the beauty of this, man, being able to zoom in, just pinch and zoom like just like you know use a normal iPad. So something like that. And then over here I'm gonna decrease the brush size a little bit, and then also add another panel, maybe a little bit more like that, and turn it every now and then. I rotate the camera just to see how it's reading, right? So now I can flatten this a little bit more like that. Okay, now this is where I start doing the using the dump standard 2 brush to add some like lines. So I'm just going to decrease the brush size and then just draw a line like from here to here to here, just like that. That's why it's so much fun to sculpt using the ZBrush for iPad, is that it has changed the way I'm gonna be doing this. So if you're at an airport waiting for your plane to arrive, if you maybe like have a connecting flight, this is an amazing opportunity, or like an amazing like option to have, to be able to sculpt while you're waiting in line. If you have like you take your car in for oil change and maybe you were waiting for like 3 hours, it's amazing to be able to do this and just continue sculpting. So again, I'm using dump standard here to add the paneling, and I think of like bold shapes initially. I don't want to try to get too bogged down in the details, but I'm thinking of general shapes where all of this is going to be reading in terms of functionality. And robots tend to have that, unless if of course if you have like like a maybe organic looking robot, but this one is more like of a mechanical kind of robot. And Megatron is like, it looks really mechanical. Look at that. It's like drawing, but you're sculpting, you know? It's so cool. I love ZBrush. I don't know if any of you use Nomad, but I go back and forth because tend to work in teams every now and then in a professional setting. So I do use ZBrush for the professional, you know, workflow, and then for my own purposes, I use Nomad every now and then. So you can start seeing the paneling starting to take shape over here, and every now and then again, I'll go back and switch to that OK graphite shader so that I can see how this is reading. It has like a really nice way of capturing the details this way. And this is awesome. And before, I mean, when we used to have like ZBrush, with before ZBrush for iPad, I used to still use my iPad to sculpt in ZBrush. But that time, I had to connect my iPad to my PC and then be able to sculpt like that, right? So it was different. Here, it is a much different feel to it because actually I had my 2015 iPad Pro that I was using, and it didn't cut. You know, it just wasn't working really well because it's so old, and the memory was just not enough for me to do this. So I had to upgrade to a newer iPad, and this one has an M4 chip, and so that's why you see like the responsiveness. Like when I zoom in and out like that, it's much more responsive. So if you're looking to use a ZBrush for iPad, I highly recommend guys that you invest in a really good iPad. You know, so it's still gonna be cheaper than maybe a Cintiq, right? So consider that that you have like a drawing tablet that you can use to sculpt, which you can take on the road, and you'll be able to use ZBrush on it because Cintiqs by nature are extent like they really are drawing tablets. They don't have programs running on them, but this is an iPad that you can use for multi-purpose, you know. So anyway, let me go in and add a little bit more detail like right here. And things don't have to be perfect, right? Every now and then you can actually turn symmetry off so that you add a little bit of dents here and there. So for example, here, if I wanted to add like a gash of some kind, like maybe this, it got cut by like a soldier, or maybe like a laser, right? So what do? I use dumb standard. I dig in, like, let me go back to that camera angle, like right here. I'm gonna do like a dig in like that, and then add a little bit of jaggedness around there. And this is when you need to turn off the symmetry mode. So let me turn the symmetry mode off, because right now what I just added is also shown on the other side. But when you're being attacked, you're not being attacked symmetrically. So it's cut on one side, cut on the other side, you know, when you're fighting. So I've turned the symmetry off, but usually I do that downstream when I know I'm getting closer to the final version of the model, right? So now I'm going to add a little bit of a gash. Let me undo that. I added a gash that I wasn't prepared for. All right, turn that off. And let me add a gash. So now I can then switch to Z add, because that was Z subtract. And then on the edges, let me zoom in more so you can actually see. On the edges here, I can start adding ridges. You know, like how, like if it was cut by a blade of some kind. And again, at this point, I've not subdivided the model because I'm still adding some details. And actually, let me switch back to the clay mode, like this other shader that I use for sculpting, because I use the OK graphite tool when I'm ready to like see like how it's reading. So this one, I'm just gonna add a few gashes here and there. And what's wild is I am sculpting on the iPad Pro in ZBrush without a computer, guys. So there's no PC attached to this. This is purely just sculpting using the iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil Pro, right? So now that you can see the gash that I've just added right there. And if you want to make it deeper, of course, you can increase the intensity so that the gash looks much deeper than that. So I'll go ahead and let's go over here, increase that a little bit more. Just the brush size. And because it's pressure sensitive, if I go back to, again, I'm using damp standard, right? And then I want to change from Z add to Z subtract. So now, if I press really hard, let me decrease my brush size. If I press really hard, let me go back. That's too big. Let's do Z add. All right, I'm gonna, yeah, something like that. And you can see because it's, again, it's pressure sensitive. So now the gash is much deeper than before, right? And then I can switch to Z add and then start working on the ridges. And let me change the brush size. A bit smaller and add those sharp edges. And go in here, add some sharp edges. And every now and again, rotate the camera to see the result. Ching! That. Yeah. So you can actually start seeing. So that's the damage that I've added. And I turned off the symmetry so that it could be unique, because think about your backstory of the character that you're trying to create. Like, I don't want to just make something that is symmetrical, because again, when you're in a fight scene, unless if the opponent has double blades, like, and cuts you at the same place, but normally it's going to be either a gun or one blade coming left and right like that, and so it cannot be symmetrical like that. So unless if a gun has like two double barrels and it fires two shots like laser shots, and and then that's where you get like a double impact. Right? So anyway, that's the head. The symmetry is back on. Now I want to go and pay attention a little bit to the legs. So right here. All right, I'm going to go back to Z add and clay build up. Let's increase the brush size. Let's add some definition on the legs. Again, I'm always thinking of like mechanical performance. Like, what is the purpose of the detail that I'm adding? Is it a hinge, like where the robot is gonna pivot around something? Because eventually I want to be able to animate this, so I'll be able to take it to 3ds Max and rig it, and then take it to iClone, animate it, render it, take it to the Unreal Engine for rendering. All right, let me continue building up some details around the legs. Because the symmetry is on, it's gonna reflect the details on the other side as well. And this is where you have to let your imagination kind of run wild. This is so therapeutic to me. Like I love sculpting. No, this is not Blender. Hi, Ricky. I'm sculpting in ZBrush. This is actual ZBrush. This is ZBrush for the iPad. And I don't know if you've seen some of the tutorials on my channel, but those when I used to sculpt in ZBrush on the PC, right? But this is sculpting in ZBrush for the iPad. They've just released this one. Maxon has just released it, and it currently doesn't have all the features that are in the PC version. That's why when I'm ready, I can send this model over to this PC version, do some additional detailing using the tools that are not in this particular version or on the iPad, and then bring it back here again for finessing, right? But even after I send it to the PC version, I can still connect my iPad Pro to my PC using programs like Easy Canvas in Tablet Pro and then continue sculpting. That is the amazing thing. So, Ricky, do you use Blender or do you use Nomad? Hi, Ahmed. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. So, again, I'm just adding little details here and there to give the legs some definition. And I'm thinking of what areas are going to need to be rigged, where the bones are going to be added. Like if I have pivot points. Oh, I have a quick question, guys. If you have a phone, could you please check and see if you can actually see it in on your phone? Because I'm streaming vertical, and I was told that, I was sent to a boot camp by YouTube, and they encouraged us to stream vertical. So if you have a YouTube channel, here's a quick tip. If you have a YouTube channel and you're looking to grow your audience, streaming vertical is going to help you immensely because, at least from what I learned in the bootcamp, when you stream vertical, that video is going to be pushed into the shorts feed. And currently, the shorts are really driving a lot of traffic to different YouTube channels. So if you are looking to grow your channel, streaming vertical is one way to do it. And so I'm trying out this one. I am not streaming vertical using my phone. I'm actually streaming vertical using OBS. I had to do a quick setup for that, and there's a plugin I had to install. Okay, so you use Blender for animating characters. We could animate your ant after you finish it. It's awesome. That would be sweet, man. Ricky, hit me up. I would love to do that, man. Yeah. So I was actually curious about that. Like, I was gonna rig this inside of 3ds Max, but I would love to see this rigged in Blender because I like rendering using cycles and because I use Simulan, I'm in the beta testing team. I want to test out the render using Simulan. So when you rig it, Ricky, please, I'm gonna take you up on this, by the way. When you rig it, I really want to show, then record it, capture it using Simulan, and then render using cycles. So in 3ds Max, we have a plugin called Cut. It's like a character animation toolkit. Does Blender have something similar to that? Is that what you use? Is there like a rig that you set up, or do you have to do custom rigs when you render when you're rigging inside of Blender? By the way, I can't wait to see this animated. All right, guys, so you can see how the legs are taking shape. Again, this set off as a ZeeZoo. Let me actually save this right now. And let me bring up the ZeeZoo so you can actually see what it looks like where it started off. So the way to load a new sculpt, you just go to Home, go to New Sculpt over here, and then under the primitives, rather Z spheres, you have a whole collection of different ZeeZoo characters. This is a great starting point, you know. So the one that I picked, and if you, especially if you're starting out, if you're trying to get into sculpting in ZBrush, this is the best way to do, because they've already set it up. And so this is the ant that I started with, right? It has loaded, and you can see how rudimentary it started off. This is a ZeeZoo. Hi, Jason. Yeah. So, all right. Yes, Jason says vertical on the phone looks good. Thank you. Your bottom toolbar looks a little odd over the chat bar, but it's fine. Okay, thank you for that. And JJ Okasha, how you doing, man? Been following your work on Facebook for a couple years now. When you started working on that female model, nice to see your work. Thank you so much, man. Ricky says, yes, you can create a new rig for your character using Auto Rig Pro, and then awesome. I can't wait to see that, right? And so this, guys, this is where the ant set off. You see how like rudimentary it looks? The cool thing about the Z spheres is that you can actually pause this, right? You can move the legs, add new different parts of it like that, go in between, add new segments. And so you're able to add more segments if you wanted to do like a robot of some kind. So before you start sculpting, you're able to add little details here and there, right? And so even though it looks like rough right now, but that's where the one that you just saw me set it off as. So let me go back to home. Nope. Go to my sculpts over here, and let's load the organic one. So this was the organic one right here. So this is where I took this ZeeZoo and I was able to sculpt and add all this detail, right? And then an idea struck me. So this is what I've been noticing about the channel, is that a lot of the new friends of mine that are coming in and be subscribing, they tend to like robotics. And so I attended another session with from that was sent. I was sent by YouTube to one of these camps in Atlanta, and they gave us some some kind of advice. And they said, if you see something happen to your YouTube channel and there's like a change, study the audience and see how well they're responding to particular types of content. And so when I started creating those animated robotic reels, I was like, okay, how can I incorporate my love for sculpting and then start creating robotic characters, right? So here's the robotic guy that I was just showing you the process. So now I'm taking it from being just organic to paneling, so that it can start looking like a real robot like that. Yep. And then of course I'm excited to animate this, like Ricky was talking about, being able to rig like these antennas. That would be awesome. So Ricky, the rig itself, the Auto Rig Pro, does it add dynamics? Like if I wanted to have like the antennas have like secondary, animation, does it do that as well? Like for example, over here on the back, I have this like, but I need to fix this. I was demonstrating like how I was able to send to and fro, but let me fix this part here. First, let me smooth. So over here on the screen, if I need to smooth, I just hold down this button right here. And then let me first increase the brush size. So let's get rid of some of this funny details. So I hold down that button, and then I'm able to smooth and get rid of any unwanted details, right? Because now I want to add some panels, and then I'll go back to my flatten brush. Again, I use mainly three brushes. I said three, and I put up four fingers. I use three brushes, the flatten, the dam standard, and the clay build-up in the initial stages. So now I need to find like a nice angle, like right here. And then I need to I can change the draw focus as well. So, and then I'm able to flatten that like so. with symmetry turned on, turn over a little bit, like right there. And then I'm able to flatten this part as well. Because again, we're trying to create a robot version of this ant. Okay, so now I have some nice paneling right there. I can also go off a little bit to the side here and flatten that like so. And then on the back, I can also flatten that a little bit. Yeah. So now I'm thinking, okay, so what will a robotic ant look like? What would the back look like? And that's where dump standard comes in. I go back to my recent brushes, click dump standard, and reduce the brush size. And then it's almost like drawing on paper now, right? On top of the back. I need to be able to add some paneling to show that it was manufactured. So I can just cut across. Actually, make sure that the brush is on subtract. Let's just do a quick one. Brush strength. Okay, now I can start adding some divisions. So there's that one area. That. And then to make it more interesting, let me reduce brush size a little bit. And I want to add like some kind of fine paneling over here. And you can see the paneling coming together, right? Here we go. And then add some more panels over here. Okay. So now that I have the panels, I can switch to Z add to lift up the edges. So again, to give it that robotic, like prefabricated look. At this point, I'm not worried about these jagged edges. I'll fix those when I subdivide. But then I can add a little ridge on this paneling over here and over here as well. And just keep doing that on the edges that are elevated. And when I'm ready to add a little bit of damage, again, thinking of the backstory of this character, then I turn off symmetry so I can add more definition. So this is where it's connected to the body. Add a little bit of definition. So Ricky says, no, auto rig is just for making a rig. You will have to animate the body, legs manually, and then you use plugins such as Simply, Cage, or Body Dynamics for the rest of it. Awesome. Okay. All right, so I'm continuing to add some details here and there. Again, try not to be like, think of it as, where does this one live? Which part of the world does this robot live? What's its backstory? That will give you an idea of how to add more details. And then on the back here, I can also add some more ridges. And I'm thinking of, again, things that will read well when it's rendered. And maybe if I need to add like some additions to this body, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there will be some cables that will go into those sections right there. Maybe it connects to a fuel source of some kind. So I add a little bit of definition right here, switch to Z subtract, and then do a dig into that like so. And you can start seeing how this is coming together. Again, this started off as an organic shape, as a ZeeZoo, simple ZeeZoo. And then I've been adding detail here and there to make it look a little bit more like a Decepticon, right? So loving back patterns on the tag. I don't know why, but they are sort to give us. Oh, that's actually a cool idea. Now that is an amazing backstory, right? So the backstory will be maybe these are mutated, like ants that came from underneath, and as it what you I'm sorry, that was a tongue twister, Aztec temple, but maybe with like some bluish coming out, and maybe like some kind of fuel source exploded and maybe mutated those ants, and now they have these patterns. That's how ideas come up. Sometimes they seem like accidents, but as ideas like this pop into your head, you go with it. Like I love ideas like that, because I'm like, sometimes even when I'm sculpting, when I'm sculpting, there will be like some accidents that happen, and I run with it. Like if something, I could even like by mistake, like maybe do a gush like that. I'm saying, man, I messed up. But I'm like, oh, wait a minute. If I have a gush like that, maybe now I can pick it up from there and then go across like that, right? And now I'm seeing a new shape coming into play, right? So yes, I get, like, I am a concept artist, right? And so every now and then ideas will pop into my head as I'm creating something. And again, I think it helps to be when you're creating your own IP, it's much easier for you to make those decisions. Of course, if a studio has paid you and they've given you specific instructions on this is the concept art that you have to follow, then of course you have to do that. But if you're creating something for yourself, and in this case, I'm thinking of a short film that I'm going to be able to create for my channel, then you definitely have the freedom to start taking those accidents and turning them into like ideas, right? So happy accidents can become amazing features for a character, and those can also contribute to the backstory as well. So I just continue sculpting in there. Dumb standard is really cool. I remember when dumb standard wasn't even a thing. There was another brush that we used to use, but then when dumb standard came on the scene, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this brush. And I think they partnered. This was before Maxon bought ZBrush. So whoever made dumb standard, thank you. I hope they paid you well to integrate this into ZBrush. Years later, now look, here we are using it. So Ricky says you can try applying Mixamo animation to it if they have 6-legged creatures in their library. I've searched in Mixamo. I don't know if they have like quadruped animations, right? But I know Reallusion has a robot, right? That has that ability to it has animation. All right, I just tapped on that. But look at this, guys. Look how dense that mesh is, right? This, remember, is an iPad. So when I was encouraging you to invest in a good iPad Pro, this is what I was talking about. Look how dense this mesh is. That's where my other iPad, the 2015 model, was struggling, because I could not. I tried to move around. Zooming in like this was difficult. But because this one has an M4 chip, that's why I'm able to get this close and add detail, add more detail, keep adding detail, And Sculptris Pro is amazing because you're able to localize the detail. It doesn't have to spread everything over. So let me turn that off so I can continue. And this is why I love ZBrush, guys. Okay, so it looks like here's another idea. So I just got an unhappy accident here. Are you still using ZBrush? Does 3D? Yes. Actually, I'm working on a new tutorial for Does 3D. So you'll see that. And they updated the facial animation app. Uh, I think it's called Face Motion 3D. So I'll be able to do some new tutorials and something like that. Yeah. Okay, here's another happy accident, right? So I'm gonna build around this. So maybe this was a happy accident, but I'm gonna use this as the attachment for the wings. And maybe the wings, like in Dune, where those like helicopter looking vehicles have those like wings that go like that. So this is a cool way to incorporate an inspiration like that. So even though it's an unhappy accident, I can now say, okay, so that's where the wings are gonna be attached. So I'm gonna build on that. So I'll go back to my clay build up and let's make an attachment, like a build up an attachment for this. Let's increase the brush size, not too big. Oh, let me also bring up another brush, and this is Move Topological. This is one of my favorite brushes. Okay, and that one, let me increase the brush size as well as too big because I want to lift this up. And you can also use a mask for that. So let's lift this up like that. And let's find another angle, lift this up like that. Lift it a little bit more because you want clearance. If you're going to add like some kind of blades that are going to be driving this creature, we need a little bit of clearance so they don't get their antennas sliced off. So let me actually go this angle here and increase the brush size a little bit more, and we're going to lift it all the way up like that. All right. So what was an unhappy accident is going to turn out to be a blessing. So first of all, I like this little icon over here. I like the feature in ZBrush that gives you the silhouette, so you get a sense of what the character is going to look like. All right, now this is going to be fun. Let's start using clay build up and add some nice paneling over here. And I see an idea here, so I'll go with that. Let's keep sculpting away, adding more detail. And no, I'm not using any reference. I'm just sculpting using imagination. Yep. And the thing is, I grew up in Africa, so we were surrounded by all manner of nature. And we had some giant ants that I remember from my childhood that, so my brother and I, we used to go into the forest, and also wherever there was like any kind of brush, we'd go in, especially on the hill where we used to live, and study little creatures. I used to take my sketchbook with me, and I'll draw every insect that I came across. And actually, on my art page, you might see some, like, for example, the rhinoceros beetle that I drew. A lot of these things come from memory and also spending time out in nature. So I highly, highly encourage guys, if you want inspiration, yes, you can do a Google search, but sometimes it does help to see like creatures in their natural environment. There's a different type of inspiration that comes with it. So for this one, I'm drawing from a personal experience as a kid growing up in Africa, in East Africa, Uganda, and having spent a lot of time studying ants. Yeah. And that's the thing about artificial intelligence, guys. If you allow me to talk about that, is that AI does not create anything from scratch. It still needs a database to be able to create something. When you do use like generative AI, it requires a database of some kind. I think the advantage we have as humans is that we have the ability to walk around and build new memories, and that's why we'll still be more creative, right? Because as you're walking somewhere in the woods, like right now, it's gonna be fall is coming. You could see a leaf falling, right? And that leaf could maybe look like a propeller of some kind, and that might bring up memories, from either childhood or, for example, for myself, I grew up in a time when there were coups in Uganda, military coups. And so where I grew up, we were surrounded by soldiers. And I think that's maybe why I ended up in video games, like in the video game industry when I came to the US, because I was so surrounded by military like experiences that I gravitated towards the working with it like a defense contractor. JJ Okocha says, I grew up in Nigeria, the biggest. I remember with the black colored giant soldier ants with the more pronounced pincers, more common around farm areas. Exactly, right? So things like that, like when I'm looking at these mandibles right now, man, that's where those memories come handy. You're able to start drawing using those references from your memory, and it's not limiting. Like if I'm using a reference, especially when you're working with a science fiction, there's like liberty to take information that you have and then create something incredible with it. There's no like limitation. You can, if an ant, like has certain features around it, think of again as you're building a backstory. At least when I'm building a backstory for an ant, I'm always thinking of how can I enhance the features of this particular creature so that I can then create something amazing. Yeah, so right now, if I had been using my 2019 2015 iPad Pro, it would be choking. It would not have been able to handle all this detail. All right. So now that I have a little bit of definition, I can start using dump standard to add some paneling over here. So let's go back to dump standard, make sure the brush is much smaller, and then start adding some definitions. Again, I'm looking at this and getting ideas from as the light catches certain areas. I just go with the flow of what my mind sees, right? Like right there, I see the light catching this, like right here. I just build on that. And just keep building on that. I can't wait to see this animated, guys. Like, I can't. I'm excited. Oh, man. It's funny because I am both an animator and also a sculptor. As I'm sculpting, I'm thinking animation as well, So I have a team that I work with. I have a studio called Soul, the name is Soul Studios, and we produce the adventures of Nkoza and Nancha. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the Adventures of Nkoza and Nancha YouTube channel and help us to get to like 10,000 subscribers. That would be really, really helpful. Anyways, I was talking about like because I have this experience as a sculptor, I'm always thinking of animation as well, not just modeling for the sake of modeling. I'm thinking of functionality. How is this gonna fly? How is it gonna move? Like if you add a bone here and there, how is it going to like fold? So think about it, guys. It's the Adventures of Nkoza and Nancha. Sorry, I didn't finish that. Adventures of Nkoza and Nancha. Nkoza is Nko Z or Z A Nkosa, and Nancha is Nankya. Nancha. Adventures of Nkosa and Nancha. So what set off as like a happy accident now is definitely giving me like some new ideas here and there. So I'm telling you, this is gonna change the way I sculpt going forward. I used to look at people who own like Cintiqs, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I owned a Cintiq. But now that I'm able to sculpt using the iPad Pro and still be able to use it for other things, because I also develop apps. So this is like a dual purpose platform me platform for me. That's it. Yeah. This is so much fun. I could sculpt and sculpt all day. So now, some things that I'm thinking about as I'm looking at this, I love, by the way, the Aztec idea. So I'm definitely gonna build into lean more into that. And let's see. So we have detail over here on the back, on the thorax, but we don't have any detail over here. So now it's time for me to add a little bit of fun detailing on the back. It's amazing that it feels like drawing, but you're actually sculpting. That's what's really cool about this. And I think if you are like an artist that can draw, I think you transitioning to ZBrush would be easy because it's literally you drawing the sculpt. That's essentially what it is. Then switch to Z add, Z subtract. Let's add a little bit of detail here. And it does help to adjust the camera every now and then to see how the light is catching, you know, like that. So you got a team who does the animations for yourself. No, so here's what the team that I have currently. I have a member who is a 3D modeler, right? Two 3D modeling artists, and I do the animation primarily. I do all the animation, the motion capture, and all that. I'm looking to once I get funding, once I get fully funded, I want to add an animator, because that's the key. Is if you want to turn episodes out more often, you definitely need an animator to do that. But because I use motion capture, sometimes I find myself it's much easier for me to do the animations here using the perception neuron motion capture suite and also the performance itself. But I also have a voice actor who is based in the UK who plays the mother of the two key our hero characters, Nkosa and Nancha. And then I also have a team member who also does illustrations for our comic books. I draw. I used to do a lot of it, but then became overwhelmed. I was like, you know what? I need to find a team member who can help me along the way. So I've worked with two other illustrators for our animated series. And then we also have a music producer from Uganda. He's super talented. So the voice actor for the mother, who plays the mother for Nkosa and Nancha, also plays the role of creating the music because she's a musician. Yeah. So there we have the back, and you can see how, like, when I adjust the light, it catches it nicely. Okay. So my favorite material, this one is let's go back to graphite. Every now and then I switch to this because I want to see how it's catching the light. It's almost giving me guidance on where to go as I light this in, because these ants, if they're going to be lit in a certain way, I want to see it as I'm modeling, because then if I have a shot, like when I'm as a director, I'm always thinking of key shots, that are going to be driving the story. And so this shader helps me to capture some of those highlights like that. So that's why I really, really love sculpting in ZBrush. And I started off with like on the early stages of when ZBrush was free, and for the longest time it was free. I had almost forgotten that you could actually pay for ZBrush. It was free for such a long time. I think we all got spoiled, and when we had to pay for it, we're like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta pay for ZBrush!" But because I'd used it for such a long time, it helped me like develop as a 3D sculptor, as a 3D modeler. So uh, I had to invest in it as well to make sure that I continue using it, and the industry grew around it. And so when Maxon bought ZBrush, I knew things were gonna get better. I knew that they were gonna get more resources, and us getting ZBrush for the iPad, I think it's partly because of that investment in ZBrush. Because if they had stayed as Pixologic as ZBrush, they were kind of limited in their like pool of funding or resources. But now to be part of Maxon, they have a bigger team. They have more resources to invest in us getting to, because I remember wishing we could have ZBrush on the iPad for a long time, and now we do. All right, Ricky asked, Nkoza Nancha is an animation story. Where can I see your series? All right, let me see if I can type it here real quick. Just give me a second. Nkoza and Nancha. Let me copy the link so you can check it out. And Control V. Okay, there we go. Check that out. In sculpting, like I always think, I'm like, there are no like devastating happy accidents because they always come back to be a blessing. Okay. And whenever something happens, I'm like, okay, where can I take this? So I'm sculpting organically, but I'm also thinking of how I can use this to, like, when we get to the rigging part and the animation part, like what parts can I add that can help the riggers, or in this case, if I'm going to be rigging myself, what's going to help me, to better, to make like a really convincing animation. So like right now, I'm using the topological move brush to define this area right here. That is so cool. I love ZBrush for that very reason, because you're able to add little panels here and there. You can use masking. So for example, let me show you actually how the masks work. Let's go back to the back. So if I wanted to lift an area like around here, so I'll go to the mask over here, hold down. Let me move this out of the way. And then hold down the mask an area. Like I'm going to mask out this area right here. I mask this whole area so I can pull something out of for the wings. All right, so that's masked. Now I can use the topological move to move this area right here. Let me increase the brush size, and then I can lift this and leave the surrounding area intact, like so. That's the beauty of the masking. Like that. So I love ZBrush, guys. I highly encourage you to give it a try. There's a trial version that's available on the iOS App Store. So give it a chance. I mean, it doesn't have all the features and you can't export. There's some file formats that you can't export. You won't have a lot of the brushes. They're going to be limited, but you can try it out and see how it works for yourself before you choose to buy it. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and purchase it on the App Store for your sculpting needs. So I think I'm almost getting to the end of the stream here. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Ricky, JJ, thank you guys for joining me and for all the feedback. Hasib, Ahmad, thank you for joining me. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you for all my subscribers. Thank you for getting me to over 345,000. I'm looking forward to making it to 500,000 and all the way to 1 million. That's going to be wild. So over here, well, not over here, but over here, you can see my plaque for 100,000. I was super excited when it came in the mail. Now, something that I learned is that the plaques are actually going to be smaller. So this size that you see right here, when you get to 1 million, that's actually going to be the size now. It used to be much bigger, like maybe like from here to here, but they are reducing the size of the plaques. Maybe it's the economy. I don't know if it's supply chain issues or if it's inflation, but something is definitely changing. But this is amazing. And I love creating on YouTube. Oh, thank you so much, Ricky. And I'm going to continue sharing like my experience as I go through, especially this ant. I really have to show it like animated and walking around in the Unreal Engine. You know, that's going to be wild. And also, I want to try it out in Simulan to see how well it reads and yeah, make a story around it, maybe like a short film. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. This has been amazing. And I'm glad that I actually have audio today. I did a stream yesterday and it just failed. Like after over 30 minutes, I just found out there was no audio whatsoever. So I had to pull that down and do a new one. So thank you again for joining me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support. Thank you to my patrons, guys. If you're able, please consider becoming a patron. And please share your ideas. Like if you're working on an idea, I would love to see it. Let me know how I can support you. If you want me to subscribe to your channel, please put it in the comments so that I can follow you on your social media, because I really owe it to you guys. And I'm grateful to God for helping us to get to this point. I'm always praying for you and your dreams. Dare to dream big. Don't give up on your dreams, whatever you do. And man, keep creating. Even though we're in this era of AI, this is where the human element can be seen in creations, that you get to draw on your experiences. And for me, I'm drawing from my experience of growing up in Uganda, watching these ants, and now also watching movies like Transformers. And for example, this gush right here, I was thinking of Megatron, you know, so like combining those things. Yeah, thank you so much, Okoche. So guys, please do not give up on your dream. Dare to dream big, even though you don't let AI discourage you, right? If you have an idea, draw it. If you have an idea, sculpt it. Find a way to bringing it from your head onto the screen, and then amazing things will start to happen. You know, like now, I was chatting with you guys, and I found out that Ricky had an idea of animating this. You know, that's amazing. That's where the human interaction comes in. You can't do that with AI. You know, I really want to continue creating with my hands, and I pray that God blesses the works of your hands as well. So see you next time. I'm gonna sign off for now, and again, there are some amazing things that are on the horizon. I'm gonna be doing a collaboration with my son. I am excited about that. I want to do a little bit more of pipe cleaners and actual functional pipe cleaners with vehicles and robots and things like that, and then see it where we can take it. So bye for now and see you in the next video. Peace out.